14 Jordanians died during the Hajj pilgrimage in Saudi Arabia due to intense heat, according to Jordan's foreign ministry. It said 17 others were reported missing as temperatures exceeded 46 degrees Celsius, nearly 115 degrees Fahrenheit. Hajj, a religious requirement for all Muslims, is one of the largest mass gatherings in the world, and it's expected to be attended by more than 1.8 million people.
Millions of Americans are bracing themselves for an early summer heatwave, which forecasters say could be the longest in decades.
Yeah, the hottest temperatures are expected to affect much of the Midwest and northeastern states for up to a week. And the National Weather Service there says record temperatures of up to 40 degrees Celsius are likely in many areas. And that's not the only weather story this morning, is it?
Well, no, because there are concerns that extreme heat will make it impossible to hold the Olympics during the summer months in future. These concerns have been raised by leading athletes and climate scientists.
Yeah, it comes as a new report this morning. It outlines some of the threats posed to competitors at this year's Paris Games, including heat stress, sleep disruption, and even the possibility of fatalities.
Firefighters in California are working to contain wildfires that have burned more than 15,000 acres of land over the weekend. The fires are mostly burning north of the city of Los Angeles. Over 1,000 campers were evacuated as the combination of high temperatures and windy conditions fueled what's being called the post-fire, the state's largest of 2024. As of Monday, just 20% of the fire was contained, with nearly 1,200 firefighters on the scene. Earlier, I spoke to Benjamin Hatchett, a meteorologist at the Cooperative Institute for Research in the Atmosphere at Colorado State University. He lives in Sonoma County in California. Benjamin, you're not too far from the wildfires at the moment. Tell us what it's like where you are right now.
So right now we have good air quality. I'm looking out the window and I can see the smoke plume from at least one wildfire that's within 100 kilometers of where I am in Sonoma County, California.
100 kilometers sounds like a lot, but really it's not in terms of wildfires, is it?
No, and in recent years, we've seen fires in these kinds of conditions be able to run 20 to 40 or more kilometers in hours, if not a day or two.
Well, we hope you stay safe where you are there. How difficult is it for firefighters to tackle these blazes in California?
Well, right now, some of the main difficulties are the very difficult terrain that they're working in. Luckily, the temperatures of late have been cooler, but there have been several fires where heat has been a big concern for the safety of firefighters and others in the areas. But the conditions have been very windy, and so that makes it very difficult to put the fire out because the fire wants to keep moving. And the very windy conditions have caused it to be extremely challenging to get the fires under containment quickly.
So they are the conditions to bring the fires under control. What are the conditions that led to them starting in the first place?
So the conditions that led to these more recent outbreaks of fires have really correlated with the extremely dry and very windy conditions that we've been seeing in recent days. Prior to those conditions, we'd seen a number of very windy and dry, overall very little precipitation this spring, and several heat waves that have dried out many of the larger fuels. So we have a lot of fuels, mostly the dead fuels right now, coming into alignment with being ready to burn quickly and ignite if a spark reaches them.
Now, you're an expert in this field. Is what you've seen so far this year normal for this point of the year?
I think for the most part, this is around the time we start seeing an uptick in fire activity. It's dependent upon the longer term climate conditions, the fuels of the area of interest. And in many of these very grassy systems with a lot of oak savannas or lots of invasive grasses in many of these places, May and June is right when those start to really dry out and become readily available to burn if an ignition source is present. We haven't had any lightning yet this year, which is very good. Lightning is also a very, very ideal mechanism from which to ignite fires in summertime in California. Otherwise, it's humid ignitions. And as we move through the summer, we're going to see a lot of these other heavier fuels and the live fuel moistures of larger trees and shrubs becoming lower and making those available to burn. And that will increase the likelihood of more frequent fires. But this is all, I think, for the most part, the start of fire season. And so not outrageously different than normal.
Are there any preventative measures that can be taken at this point? I mean, you mentioned how everything's drying out, and obviously there are extremely hot temperatures across much of the United States at the moment.
Yeah, in California, we're not having as hot of temperatures as we've had in the past. The temperatures and combined with low relative humidities make any spark, whether it's from just an accident with tools or driving around or really any source of fire can cause a fire to start very easily and grow very rapidly. And so preventative measures include being very careful with the kinds of work you're doing, the time of day that you're doing that work, the kinds of tools that you're using, and making sure that you have the right equipment and training available to extinguish any fire should one start.